God, it's Mr. Preezee.
So my guest this episode is a man who exemplifies humility and hustle. He's one of the hardest working guys that I know, especially in the YouTube game. And because I can't call him anything other than Mr. Preezee, I will call him Mr. Preezee. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
So one of the main things that that I want to do with this channel is I want to be able to be an inspiration and help people to kind of find whatever inspires them and do those things that inspire them. And in doing that, that's one of the big reasons why I wanted you to come on, because you know, as I've gotten to know you, gosh, maybe we met last year.
Yeah, about 6-7 months ago.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And over that time, as I've gotten to know you, and, you know, obviously, as I watch your videos on your YouTube channel, which I'll put all of the links in the description below to get in touch and to go subscribe to. And that's the other part of it too. I know your name's not Clay, but I always default to calling you Clay. What's say your name?
The government name is Dioas Clay, but literally everybody calls me Mr. Preezee, including my mom and whatever. It's Preezee.
Well, and honestly, and it's funny, it's anytime I refer to you, I always refer to you as Mr. Preezee. Even like my wife was asking me today, it's like, who are you interviewing today? I was like, Mr. Preezee, and she just looked at me like, who?
That's what it is.
And that's the other part of it too, is that I know that like the first time that we met, you told me what your name was, and for whatever reason, the only name that stuck in my head was Clay.
Yeah.
And
that's the professional use of it. Like whenever I'm out and, you know, I got to be professional about it, I'll use Clay, but it's really Preezee, Mr. Preezee.
Well, now Preezee is your stage name, correct?
Yes.
So, okay. So tell everybody about who you are and what you do. And forgive me while I drink coffee while you're telling me.
Yeah, go ahead. From the beginning, I mean, I started as a music producer, an aspiring music producer back then / DJ. But DJing kind of took over once I got into that arena and started, you know, DJing at clubs and all that kind of stuff. And that was my job for a good, 10, 12 years.
Okay.
5 days a week being a club DJ, and producing was actually on the back burner of that. But
which, by the way, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, which, by the way, you guys have to go check out his live streams, because he DJs, he live streams his DJ sessions. And seriously, I watched the other one. I watched the one, I think it was yesterday that you did it. And I'm just, you know, listen, I mean, I'm a white boy. What do I know about hip hop music? But I have to say, you know, just watching you, and I told you just a second ago, you have one of the most infectious on-camera personalities that I've ever seen, and so you will jam. I mean, it is total house party for sure. Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Continue.
And that comes from, you know, being a club DJ for so long, and like I said, that branched over into being a music producer. But I've always loved music. I've always loved creating music. I started back in my early teens as a drummer, as a trumpeter. I played trumpet, drums, and bass guitar. But drums is my main instrument. You know what I mean? So even when I produce, it's always really drum driven. So DJing, production, and then over the last, say, 10, 12 years, I got into photography. So now I'm a professional photographer, and I put that in quotes because, you know, what is professional? But professional photographer.
Well, technically, professional is anything where you make money at. So, I mean, if you're making...
There it is. Yeah. Then I'll take the quotes off.
Yeah, there you go.
And my day job is a video editor.
Yeah. Now, and you... well, I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but like, so who do you edit for?
The main person I edit for is Jock Slade, which is a very popular... We'll call him a celebrity. He won't claim that title, but a celebrity in the YouTube game. I edit basically 90% of his videos for his channel.
Now, something that I didn't know about Jock until obviously a little bit later, because before meeting you, I was introduced to your music, and of course, one of my favorite tracks that you have done, you do with Jacques. And the very first time that I heard it, I was like, did Mr. Preezee just do a track with, oh gosh, now I'm going to look
Jay-Z?
like an idiot. Yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh. I literally had his name on my tongue and it just went away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, did he just do a track with Jay-Z? And
yeah,
then,
his style is definitely highly influenced by Jay-Z as well as Will Smith. Like those are his two big influences.
Yes, and I hear both of those influences in his rap, and it's really phenomenal. Again, I interrupted you again. I am sorry for doing cool. that. So you edit, your main person that you edit for is Jacques. And you also do, now you put professional photographer in quotes, but I've seen your photography, not to mention the fact that people are paying you for your photography. And you know, as somebody who, because that's something that we'll talk about. Well, we could probably talk about it right now as well too. But that was kind of one of the other questions that I had too, is, you know, and that's one of the things that I love about you is you are completely self-taught in just about everything that you do, correct?
Yeah, I've always branched off and wanted to explore whatever talents I have. So if it's anything that I want to do, all it takes is time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Time, give me a little bit of time,
and
I'll
patience.
learn it, and 9 times out of 10, I'll master it. So over the course of my career, there's been a lot of things I want to do. I've never gotten help for it because people are, in LA, people are usually self-absorbed. You know what I mean? They're just, if it's not going to benefit me, I don't want anything to do with it.
I think that's an understatement.
So when you're reaching out for help, it's like, okay, I need help. Nobody want to help me. Fine, I'll figure out a way to do it myself.
Right.
So that's how I ended up doing all these things. Like I needed beats for my album. I wanted to be a rapper.
Right.
Nobody would give me beats. I started making beats myself. I need to write rhymes. Nobody wanted to help me write rhymes. Write them myself. I needed pictures now that I got my album done. Nobody want to take pictures. I'll take them myself. So that's pretty much how I go. So everything I've just hustled up and self-taught myself to get whatever I need to get done.
And I love that. And I love that attitude. And I love that that drive, because I think that that's one of the things that, especially people who are coming up who don't necessarily, you know some of those things or how to even go about doing it, is really it all comes down to you. It really comes down to what you want to do. You know, what you need to, first of all, that's probably one of the most important things to do, is you need to figure out what you want to do.
Right.
And then go after it. But see, that's what's also awesome about you as well, is you've done that multiple times in different things. You just said you started out as a rapper. You needed beats, so you did the beats yourself. You needed a rhyme, so you wrote the rhymes yourself. You needed, it's funny. And while we're on the subject of rap, because that's also, well, that's not how we met, because you saw one of my tutorials on my channel. And you put a comment. I saw
your
Ableton.
Right when I
Ableton.
bought Ableton.
Yeah.
And I was just looking up and trying to learn. I don't read manuals.
Right.
So I looked up a couple of videos. I hate manuals. I just throw them away with the box. Done.
Yep.
But there were a couple of things I need to figure out. Your channel came up with 2 different videos that I needed to learn about. Watched them. Just randomly hit you up. And you responded back, and we've been talking ever since. Right,
exactly. And it's funny too, because I don't even know what it was, and call it kismet, call it it was meant to be, whatever it was. But there was something about that first comment that you put in there that just was kind of like, I need to. I don't know, whatever it was. Yeah. And that's, kind of on a side note, as far as YouTube goes, that's also why it's important to respond to your comments, not just to increase engagement, for your channel and your videos, whole another side issue. But there was, I don't know what it was, but there was something inside of me that was kind of like, maybe, I don't know what it was. Anyway, so we just started talking, and that I remember when we met, the first time that we met, and I was I was nervous, and the reason I was nervous because you always hear about the stories of, don't go meeting somebody off of Craigslist and,
right.
So it's like, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm meeting somebody that I don't know anything about, and I'm going to meet them. And I think one of the things that blew me, well, first of all, your wife was there, which was awesome.
Yep.
I loved meeting your wife, which again, immediately I think endeared me to you and to who you were as a person.
Yeah, she has that effect.
But the other thing that completely has, took me aback that first meeting is you bought me lunch. And
I figure, okay, here's the thing with that. When you actually showed up. So I was like, all right, well, you spent your gas.
Yep.
The least I can do is buy them some food. And if I'm going to eat, then everybody eats.
But I think that also speaks to who you are as a person because, anyway, but I think that was probably what solidified, kind of our relationship for me, at least in that regard, was like, they say for men, the quickest way to a man's heart is through his belly. and so
it's true. It's very true.
It is true. It is true. And so, I think that was kind of what made it click for me, or what made it stick for me, I should say, from that very first meeting. And then of course, things got busy and crazy, and you were going to come out and meet me for lunch, where I was working. Actually, Jacques was also working on that particular project as well, too. And that unfortunately never happened. And then COVID happened, and,
right. Yeah.
Anyway, that was a long exposition on how we met, which was not really intended in terms of what I wanted to talk about here.
But you never know. Somebody may hear that and be like, okay, we need to take a chance on meeting people or networking. Networking is hard to do nowadays, especially being online.
Networking is very, very hard to do. And actually, you hit the nail on the head. You actually kind of made the correlation as to kind of what that whole thing was about, which I wholeheartedly agree with you, is that's probably one of the most important things about the entertainment industry, whether it's music, whether it's photography or whatever it is. Networking is so important because your gigs come. My friend Jonathan, who was on the previous episode, he said, which I loved, which is your network is your net worth. And
right.
And the very first episode of this show, my friend Jay, I think he touched on it in that particular episode as well too, is almost all of his jobs come from referrals. They don't. He. Oh yeah. He has never responded to a resume or an ad. I think he did it in the very beginning, but ever since then, it's been, referral after referral. So
out of 20 plus years of DJing and the 10 years of photography, 99% of my work has been word of mouth. Somebody heard me DJ at some other club and they wanted me to do that, or somebody's birthday party heard this and referred to that, or I saw the wedding pictures that you did of blah blah blah. Here's that, you know, and it's all about networking.
Yes, that kind of leads into kind of the next question, and I know what your answer is because I know you, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's one of those things that I want people who are watching this who want to get into this business. I want them to kind of hear some of this information. You already kind of talked about it a little bit, but do you think school is necessary as it relates to the creative industry, what we do?
In my early years, when I first started, I did some ADR work as an intern. Okay. That lasted for about a year. And it was after that I realized school was not really that important, or, trying to sit in the classroom setting and learn it, because the things I was learning, I realized then, this was before online and before internet, I could learn that stuff on my own. Like I say, it just takes time, and you sitting in front of whatever your workstation is, and you learn it.
Yes.
So is school important? Yes, in the sense of networking, because you can network and meet a ton of people in school.
Yes.
But if you have the ability to network outside of what you do now, which is like online and everything like that, like we did, school isn't that important anymore. You still need to learn the job and learn the skill. Yes. But you can do that by creating your own projects.
Yes. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. And actually, what you had just said, my friend Jay in the first episode kind of said that as well too. Is school. Because Jay and I went to two different film schools, and and in terms of the content of what we learned, it was pretty similar. The differences between him going to USC and me going to a school like Columbia College in Chicago is who you're going to school with. Right. And exactly. I mean, I'm still in touch with at least a half a dozen people that I went to school with that are out here working in this industry. And and so school gives you two things. It gives you a safe place to fail. And it gives you kind of almost an immediate network. Especially if you're going to school with like-minded people, and typically if you're in film school, you're pretty much going to be around those people quite a bit throughout the like I said, I only have probably a handful of people that I can count on one hand that I went to school with that are working out here in LA. Most everybody is still in Chicago or the Midwest or in New York or other places like that. Whereas Jay went to USC. So, most of the people that go to USC typically stay within the film industry. And so he has a kind of a much larger and better network than somebody else. So,
fellow Trojan.
Well, and my wife is a USC grad, so I'm USC by proxy.
There you go.
But
that, like I said, let me that
go
worked
ahead.
for me
Go
though.
ahead, absolutely.
So school, school for me, it wasn't a thing that I wanted to do and wanted to spend money to go to school. So I put that money and reinvested it in myself, and just took my LA hustle. To hustle to where I am now.
And that's what Steve Jobs did. Steve Jobs didn't want to go to college, and he instead kind of took that money and turned it into something different. And
I'm still hustling to this day though, so don't get it wrong.
Well, Steve Jobs is that kind of level, if you will, is not for everyone, which is why they're few and far between. But one of the things that I was going to say too was, and I didn't think about this until just now, is, and I just lost my train of thought. So there we go. As I get older, I start losing I get distracted very easily. But anyway, it had to do with school. Oh, I know what I was going to say. If for film school, you have people like Quentin Tarantino, Steven Spielberg, they didn't go to film school, but then you have people like George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola and John Carpenter. They went to USC, so you have both sides of it. And I think that it depends on who you are as a person. And I know with me, probably one of the reasons, I mean, I've always been creative since I was in second grade. I, can remember going to class and asking my teacher if I could, play the new song that I just wrote. And for all I know, it was pure shite. But, so as long as I can remember, I've always been doing stuff creatively, and I have been fortunate enough to have, parents and grandparents who reinforced that and wanting to do that. And I was never really good at much of anything else. And so it was kind of a natural extension kind of for me to do that. And I, and one of the other things about that made film school good for me was I don't like book learning. You said earlier you don't read manuals. I don't like either. I don't really do that either. And at least in terms of like music gear and stuff like that, one of the best ways that I evaluate a piece of gear is it easy to figure out how to use? Because if it's too complex and if it takes me too long to figure out how to use it to be creative with it, then I don't want it.
Yeah.
And
this is the same way I feel about this Ableton Push right now. Like, I love it, but it's still a little bit too complicated for me. So it has a little coat of dust on it right now, but I'm gonna get with it.
Well, the Machine Micro that I have behind me has a unfortunately, a little bit of code on it right now. Mostly because I got it for mobile stuff when I would commute into Los Angeles, and then of course COVID happened, and I ain't going anywhere. So,
Same.
so how? Well, you actually kind of answered this as well too. You said you're still hustling, but the question was gonna be how did you get your first big break? Like, how did you? I know you probably wouldn't consider a big break, in any regard, but like you, like one of my favorite tracks that you wrote, you had told me that that's probably the most popularly placed track that you've written. Yeah,
well, musically, that is the most popular track that it's in countless TV shows and movies or whatever. But I think my first big break, and I was thinking about this off air before we got on, was maybe a few years after I started DJing and really started making a run to be a professional DJ. Mm-hmm. I ended up getting a manager, and then I ended up going on tour with a reggae artist for a year. Okay. So that's when it was like, all right, this is about to be my life. You know what I mean? And that was my big break. So we ended up going, all over the U.S., just literally for a whole year, TV appearances and all that kind of stuff. And that was my first big break, DJ wise, to say like, this is what I want to do. Right. And then as far as production, the song You Like was actually a licensed song that it is popular, but it wasn't my first. My first was actually on Johnny Mosley's Mad Tricks. It was a video game for, was it PlayStation? I think it was PlayStation, or like the very first PlayStation. So that was my first one, and that's when I realized, all right, that's a thing too.
Now, you said something that probably some people who are watching this don't know anything about, and you said you got yourself a manager. Now, what is a manager?
What is a manager?
What? Okay.
A person that takes 20% of your money. That's what the manager is.
Well, legally, they can take as much as they want.
I gave 20%. That was all they was getting. So,
just talk to Elvis Presley. Oh, wait, you can't.
Manager basically helps handle your business affairs, I guess, in a nutshell.
And I would say that
our manager is important. Can be. I guess it depends on your level of your career or whatever. Like right now, I don't have a manager right now, so I handle everything myself, which is pretty hard, but...
So a music manager is a little different than a talent manager, somebody who manages like an actor or an actress or writer or director. So a manager in those two worlds is a little bit different in terms of what they do, but at least in the Hollywood film industry business, a manager actually can be very helpful because they're just another representative to help you push your product, which is your content and what you're creating. And managers typically do a lot more hand-holding than agents do. Agents literally are there, it's one of the things that's really redundant about the entertainment industry is you have an agent, you have a manager, you have a lawyer, you have a publicist, you have all of these people who are literally taking a piece of your pie. So if when you sit there and think about sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that person got $1 million for that job. Well, that person has to pay. Well, first of all, that person has to pay Uncle Sam, which is that's 40% of that. Especially at that level. But then after, with that 60%, they got to pay 10% to an agent. They got to pay, typically in the entertainment industry, it's 15% for your talent manager. But then, got another 5% for your lawyer. And I don't know what publicists charge, anyway. But, so, you're out of $1 million, you might be lucky if you're taking home $200K. Now, for most people in the world, they're set for an entire year with just $200K. So, I'm not crying, boo-hooing over these celebrities who, because, you're just, that might be one contract. And you have to, especially if you're, if you're on the level of like a Brad Pitt or something like that, I mean, you're doing, you have these people negotiating multi-million-dollar deals in not just film and television, but in merchandising and all of these other avenue and revenue streams that that are out there. And so in that respect, those people can be very helpful in facilitating yourself as a business.
Right.
And so I when you had mentioned that, I realized that probably people watching this thing are not going to have any clue as to what a manager does. And so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time, kind
definitely.
of breaking that down, because again, that's, if your goal is to be in this business, and if your goal is to, whether it's music or whether it's film and television, those are things that, I know as a kid from the Midwest, when I touched down in 1997 here in Los Angeles, I knew I did know a lot because I was voraciously, reading about the entertainment industry for, probably the previous 4 or 5 years before I came out here. So I already knew some of the names of the big, players in the executive realm and stuff like that. But there's so much that you learn on the job. In this business. And again, I'm taking up too much of the conversation. So I'm going to...
It's okay, because like you say, people might want to hear this.
I know, but I want people to hear you say it. We want people to hear you talk.
It don't matter who say it, as long as it gets said.
That's true. What is some of the best advice that you've gotten, career or life-wise? I mean, is there something that, that you've, whether it's been somebody you've met in the industry or, maybe a family member, is somebody giving you any kind of piece of advice that's just kind of stuck with you this, your entire life?
I thought about this one too. Career advice, it was hard for me to pinpoint that because I've always prided myself on my work ethic. So
right.
I've never really had anybody to feel like they need to give me advice, because I do it. I do the work.
Right.
I sit in the chair and I push and I push and I push and I push. So there was no advice needed to, like, you can't tell me to work harder.
Yes.
I'm already working hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't tell me to push any further. Like, I'm doing it. And I wouldn't say I lead by example, but I
right.
walk the walk. I don't have to talk it. Like, I don't have to say, I do this, I do that. You know?
And I'm going to put all of the descriptions in. I'm going to put all of this information in the description below. But you have this is one of the things that I was saying at the beginning. You're one of the hardest working people I know, especially in the YouTube game, because you are you're podcasting, you're live streaming your DJs. Sometimes you do sample flips. Which are also wonderful and amazing as well too. Obviously, you work for Jacques, and then you also, well, not since COVID happened, but you also DJ on the weekends, and then you do photography. I mean, that's already 6 things on my hand of things that you do, and you have a family, you have a wife, you have a son.
Yeah.
Where do you find time to get all of that in? I mean, and not to mention the fact, I mean, your son is older than my boys, but where do you find time for this? And on top of that, sorry, I'm going to let you answer, I promise. And on top of that, you literally take over your living room to do all of this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So let me finish the other question.
Sorry.
My advice.
I hijacked you again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my life advice was the best advice I've gotten from my mom, and she always tell me to dare to be different.
I love that.
So that's the one thing that stuck with me from 7 years old to even now. So when I produce music and I'm doing beats, and I get that people tell me, "Oh, you should make a beat like DJ Mustard, or you should make a beat like Dre." No, I'm not going to do that, because I want to make beats like me. I make my stuff.
Yes.
So when you hear my sound, don't ask me to make nobody else sound.
Right.
You'll get my sound.
Yes. Amen. You're preaching.
So, or even photography. I want pictures that look like that.
Yeah.
No, you're going to get pictures from my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the one thing that stuck with me, and that's the best advice that I could probably give back, is to just dare to be different.
And I think that's probably, some of the most important advice that I think that you could give to any up and coming creative. You have to find your own voice. You have to be yourself. And I actually told the same story, so I'm not going to repeat it, but just a little microcosm. I said it in the last episode, which is, I had a friend who was a writer, and he was a really great writer, and when he was writing from his passion, from his center, his writing was really amazing. It was, he just needed to find the right people to put those scripts in. And anytime he tried to be somebody else or write, hey, I'm going to write like this, or I'm going to write, like this hit film. And it was always contrite. It was always forced. It was always, kind of really bad. And so I think that's a really great piece of advice for any up and coming creative is you got to find your own voice. You got to be yourself.
Yeah. And then to answer your other question, where do I find time? I mean, my wife, she knew me back when I was super busy back then. Right. So it's like, this is nothing new. Right. So we've basically, I wouldn't say, I mean, it's kind of, it is what it is. You're like, this is my process. This is how I work. This is the world. You know what I mean? Right. So everything kind of fits in that world. Right. So taking over my living room, I think you can kind of see in the video, I'm kind of moving where you can see it. I have my DJ controller right here, and the keyboard is right here. So
I think your dining room
this has
table,
been it. Like there's never not been a studio in my space. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like as far back as I can remember, even in my bedroom at my mom's house, when I was still staying there was always some kind of, creative music space. Right. So even when we go look for a new place to live, the first thing we do is, I can put the studio right there. Oh, by the way, the couch can go right there. That's always the first, where can I put the studio is the first thing. Yep. So it's just, it's been that. And as far as like finding time, you just roll with it. You just do what you do when you do it. Yeah. And you just make time where you can. I don't think, y'all don't feel like, she's sitting right here, I think, and she's listening. So y'all don't think I don't make time, right? We make time for everything. I get my work done, and then I go do whatever. Well, you also do something with your son that I think is also pretty amazing. And I'm not really an art fan. And when I say art, I mean specifically like paintings and stuff that you would go see in a museum and whatnot. And you and your son do these amazing oil paintings. Is your wife a part of that process as well too? She is. It's something he found on YouTube, right? And got really into it. And me being the creative, I'm like, go ahead, go for it, 100%. Let's go. Right, exactly. So we all kind of do it as a family, even though it's his idea, but it's a thing. And I'm glad he's being creative. And they're really great. And I'll put a link. I'll put a link in the description below as well for that as well too, because I think people you guys have an Instagram account specifically for that, but also too I think you can buy some of that art. Yes. Yeah, it's his difficult. Summer job, I guess. We're trying to make it a summer job for him. It's clay. What is it? Clayhouse Paints. Yeah. Clayhouse _ Paints. Is it? I thought it was Paints by. No, he changed it. Oh, okay. So it's Clayhouse _ Paints. All right. I'll put a link in the description below for that as well too. All right. People got to check that out. So how do you, with everything that you do, and with the constant hustle, how do you find inspiration? I don't want to sound too cheesy, but it's just from life. Like my brain does not turn off. Yeah. And from breaking stuff down, and then it's really hard to turn my brain off nowadays, because now I'm thinking visually and sonically. It used to just be music, I know. But now it's visually. So now I'm always looking at Marvel movies, like, okay, how did they do this, and trying to break it down instead of just stopping to enjoy the movie. Yeah, Well, it's funny that you say that, and it's funny that you say that because, those are the classes. Well, in a lot of respects, those are what you do in film school. You break a film down. You break, my editing class in film school, it was 2 days a week, and we met for 3 hours. And every class we would watch a movie. And then at the end of the class, we would talk about the movie. And there were people in the class who would get frustrated, with us not learning the
software application and whatnot. But our teacher was like, hey, you guys got to know the aesthetics of editing. You got to know why you do, why you make this cut, why you do this. And so I think what you just said is really key right there, because that's really all you're doing in film school is you're breaking things down, and then you're okay when once you get a concept, okay, let me try and apply that concept. And same thing with tutorials on YouTube. I think some of the best, there's kind of become a little bit of a trend, at least in the motion design community, where people will put out a tutorial on how to do something, and then all of a sudden you're starting to see that tutorial show up in people's demo reels, and it's like, well, no, don't just do the tutorial. Take it and make it your own. As we were talking about earlier, find your own voice in what you're doing.
Right. So as far as finding inspiration, I mean, like I said, I just take it from experience. Yeah. And speaking on tutorials, that's kind of why I don't put tutorials on my channel, because I don't want you to copy what I'm doing.
I know.
And that. And I don't watch too many tutorials. Sorry for anybody that's putting tutorials out there, because I know I won't do it. You know what I mean? I know I won't follow that. Like, I'll follow it to maybe get the instructions.
Yes.
But to copy what you're doing, that's absolutely not going to happen.
Well,
you know what I mean?
One of the reasons one of the very first tutorials that I did a few years ago. I want to say probably it was about 2018. And part of the reason I did the tutorial in the first place was because I had stumbled upon that particular problem at least 2 or 3 different times and spent multiple hours trying to find the solution. And and again, it happened more than once. It happened 2 or 3 times. And so I was like, I got to make a tutorial about this, because I need to do this for my own memory, for my own sanity. And because if I've been using After Effects for many, many years, and I'm, pro level, if you will, then I'm sure somebody else is coming across the same exact problem. And sure enough, and that's the best performing tutorial on my channel.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, tutorials are great.
No, I'm not.
You know what I'm saying? But for me, though, it's like I can't do tutorials like that. And how you saying, like, just copying what you did, what you saw.
Right. Well, and to clarify, I initially was thinking I was going to do tutorials very much like what a lot of people do. Yeah. And what I have come, at least in my evolution on YouTube, is I've come to realize that I feel like the best tutorials are the ones that are quick, that are like, get to the point, get it done, get it out, solving a problem, as opposed to, hey, here's my style and this is what I do. This is how I model. Because like you just said, I don't want somebody to, and it's not that I don't want somebody to copy me. I don't want somebody to have that crutch of, in not being able to find their own voice in how they do things. And because my friend Jonathan, who was on the previous episode, I mean, some of his tutorials are showing up in people's demo reels, and people are literally copying what he did in that particular tutorial and passing it off as their content.
But finding inspiration, I mean, I listen to people. I mean, like, production wise, my favorite producer is Timberland.
Okay, interesting. I wouldn't have expected that.
It goes Timberland, Neptunes, not just Pharrell though.
Okay,
Pharrell by himself has one sound. Right. Neptunes, the team, has another sound.
Yeah.
So Neptunes, Dr. Dre.
Interesting.
And then with a splash of DJ Quick.
That's interesting, because
that sound would be my sound.
I would have expected Dre to be first. And so that's interesting to hear you say that.
Here's why I put Timberland above Dre though.
Okay.
They're both super producers.
Yes.
So whoever's watching this and want to just comment how they should be opposite, fine. That's your opinion. But for me, Timberland is first, because if you listen to his early stuff and you break those down, he's using like random sounds that are not considered music keyboard sounds. Adding baby sounds in there to make that sound musical. Yes. Or a dinosaur roar and make that sound musical. That kind of stuff is crazy. Like, you don't just sit down in the studio and think about that out the box. You got to just have a different type of mind frame.
Oh yeah, no,
to bring in a baby sound and make it sound hot.
You're absolutely right. And I think that, like one of the things that amazes me about now, it's funny hearing you say that is kind of making me rethink my, kind of my process in that, or not my process, but my order of who I would say those would be. And, because Dre would be at the top of my list. I don't think he would be number one, and only because I don't want to bring race into this, but I'm white, so I didn't really know about Dre until I moved to Los Angeles, right. And I had heard about NWA when I was a kid, but I didn't really listen to them, and it's. And it's funny. I think actually the first NWA song that I ever heard was my best friend was the pastor's kid of the church and school that I went to growing up, and I think the first NWA song that I ever heard was him playing it for me. And but for me, probably my big producing hero is David Foster, and
okay,
because David Foster's music, especially during the '80s, David Foster's music, I really connected with his production and the way he wrote and the way he writes and stuff like that, and a lot of that had to do with the piano teacher that I had when I was a kid, who realized that I was not good at. I was not disciplined at studying Beethoven or Mozart or any of the classical or romantic composers or anything like that. I liked film music, and and she was the one that introduced me to David Foster and the music that he did for St. Elmo's Fire and some of those other things. So that's probably why David Foster is probably number one on my list. But I would actually probably put Dre as number two, and I think some of that's not just because of the music, but because of his story, and the Defiant Ones is probably one of my favorite documentaries about music, with him and Jimmy Iovine and whatnot, and getting a wider picture of of kind of where he came from, and which is interesting too, because also one of my favorite movies is Boys in the Hood, which John Singleton did in '92, and as a kid, as a white boy growing up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I didn't see race. I didn't see any of that stuff. I literally, I was the main character, and because we didn't have money. We had I went to private schools, but I went to private schools because I had a grandmother who didn't want to see us living in the projects, which is kind of where we were living before she paid for our private school education. But even then, we didn't have any money. We were probably the poorest kids at that school, and so there was something about that Trey character that I identified with and that I latched onto, and I don't even know why we're going down this road because it's completely off topic with what we were originally talking about. But John Singleton's story really spoke to me in on a completely different level, and I think that's also kind of something that I love about Dre's music as well too, and even in his producing of Eminem, I like Eminem because you can feel the experience in his music. You can feel the story. It's visceral. It's something that you could really kind of grab onto. And I remember the very first track that I ever heard of Eminem, I was like, holy so it's and I've always, and that's kind of been one of the identifying factors in terms of me latching on to something is you can feel their story, you can feel what they want to do, and that's also one of the things that I that I love about you is I can feel your passion, and it's addictive, and I want to be around it because passionate people help push you to be passionate yourself and to go get what you want to get, and I think that's I'm very I'm a very big believer on having friendships of where, you're essentially kind of iron sharpening iron, type of a thing. And so that's one of the things, it's one of the things that I want around me now in terms of my relationships is I want people who are going to push me forward and kind of get a better version of myself.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree.
If someone wants to do what it is that you do, well, you do multiple things, so this would be probably a multifaceted answer, but what advice would you give somebody? What would you say to somebody who wants to be in the music business or wants to do photography, or what's the best way to go about doing that today?
Well, start, first of all, whatever it is, start. Like, don't procrastinate. And I should speak to myself on that one. I'm a big procrastinator, but don't procrastinate, just do it. Yeah. But as far as like starting in the music biz, find your voice. Yeah. Find your idea, or if it's producing, find your sound. And then don't let anybody change it, stick to your guns. Don't feel like you got to fit in that box. Right. Because why? Create your own box. Or no box. I like that. I like that a lot. Create your own box. Or no box. You don't even need to be in a box. True, I go with that mindset of like, you can't put me in a box. I don't put myself in a box. So you can't say like, oh, Preezee is a hip hop producer. No, because I've also done that genre, and that genre. Yeah. So, well, and you play trumpet. Just start. So that's the main thing. The bottom line. What'd you say? I said, well, and you play trumpet too. So. Well, yeah, that part. Who plays trumpet anymore? But, I know. But yeah, just start. As far as photography, same thing. Just pick up a camera and, just push the button. You don't have to feel so overwhelmed. Stop looking at Instagram and think out the gate you have to be like that, because you don't. I didn't. You don't. And I think that's unrealistic. And I think that's actually, because Jonathan and I don't think we talked about it on the episode, but we've talked about this before as well too. I think that's one of the hardest parts, especially in terms of trying to find your own voice, is there's so much information out there, and there's so much noise. There's so much social media noise. Sometimes it's just overwhelming. Yeah. And you don't have to feed into that. You can take a step back and say, okay, I'm new to this. Right. Let me start from square one and learn. That's okay. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree with you. Wholeheartedly agree with you. Again, take me in this Ableton push. I'm still on step 2. So, and I'm okay with that. We really need to follow up on some of the things we initially talked about at that very first lunch. Maybe I do need to watch some tutorials on this Ableton push, damn it. Well, it's funny because I remember you contacted me. It was like, how do you do this? And I was like, oh, well, this is how you do it. And then I realized I need to make a tutorial on that. Yeah, I need to go back and watch it because but just start. That would be my main advice. Just don't feel like you need to be perfect out the gate. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Oh man, hopefully, I don't know, retired next door to Dre. I don't know. I'm not the one to make. You really want to live in Beverly Hills? I don't make long-term plans like that. I've never done that. I've never been the 10-year plan person. Right. I just, pick my battles from right now. Just keep going forward. As long as I'm going forward. As long as I make this year better than last year, or this week better than last week. As long as I'm doing that, I'm fine. Yeah, it's funny because I constantly hear the gurus talk about, oh, you need to have a 5-year plan and 10-year plan and this and that. I'm like, really I need to. Yeah, I don't do that. I just don't. That's never been in my character to do. I don't plan that far ahead. Yeah, like you can always dream. Yes, you can always think big. Right, you got to think of big, but doing a 5-year plan thing, like, nah, because then if you don't make that plan, there is that slippery slope where you can just fall into depression, like, I don't want to do it anymore. Right. No, and well, I think also something that's all. I mean, I don't know if I speak to you on this. I have such a short attention span. Like, especially like when my wife asks me to do something, especially usually from the moment I wake up in the morning, I'm in my head. I'm already trying to think about all of the things that I need to do, and
And it's funny too, because my wife and I are two different personalities. She is super organized. She is super meticulous about things and, very detail oriented. And I'm not. I'm just the opposite. I'm fly by the seat of my pants. I don't write things down as much as I try to do that more now that I'm doing YouTube videos and stuff like that. I try and write those ideas down as soon as they come, so I won't ever forget it. And it's funny. It's like, well, you can't see my screen right now, but my when my web browser, I have like a bazillion web pages open because those are my sticky notes. Because I'm like, I'm really bad about writing things down, and so from the time I get up in the morning, I'm already kind of in my head thinking about what I need to do that day, and trying to, and it's usually a bunch of different things as well too, and so I'm so easily distracted, and with creativity, it's so easy to be distracted, and true. And I envy. I have a number of creative friends who are super disciplined and super detailed, and are very organized in how they do their work. And I suffer from that, especially when it comes to creativity, because like I'll be working on a 3D animation or something like that. All I'm doing while I'm working on that is thinking about I need to write music. I haven't written anything.
I don't find myself getting too scattered. I'm definitely goal oriented. So if I know something needs to be finished and I'm on it.
Yeah, same.
And then I don't forget a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So if there's a list, usually I don't have to write it down. Right. However, I do find myself the last couple of years, I have a whiteboard now only because I'll think of ideas super randomly. And I know if I don't write those down, I'll forget them.
Yes.
But projects though, 100% up here,
right?
And that's done deal.
Well, and that's kind of the running joke is that I'm detail oriented only when it comes to project, like my stuff, like especially with motion graphics. Like I will sit there and I will pixel all day long. I gotta move it over this and move it over that, and and so it and same thing with music. Like I could literally spend an 8-hour day, and I've only worked on 4 bars.
Yeah, definitely. Been there, done that for sure.
So I'm trying to get better about one of the best things that I've heard over the last couple of years, especially in this YouTube journey, is done is better than perfect. And so I've been trying to get out of my own head in achieving just that. Done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
I think the last thing that I have, at least in terms of what I wanted to talk to you about, and we can talk as long as you want to, or at least until my battery dies, but are you, because your on-camera personality is very infectious, but also because I know you're not naturally an extrovert, are you?
Naturally, no. No, I'm not. I'm actually I'm a pretty shy dude, but being the DJ and that center of attention, and being on stage over the last 20 whatever years, I've grown out of that. But yeah, you turn the cameras off, it is a different person. I do joke around with the family. I mean, who don't? But I'm not. I turn the presence off. You know what I mean?
Do you think that your 20 years experience as a DJ has helped you with being on camera for YouTube?
Oh yeah, 100%, definitely.
Because the hardest thing for me, I spent so much. I mean, I did theater in high school. I loved it. I was the lead role in every play in high school. So I loved acting. I loved being on stage. And it is very addictive performing in front of an audience, but I never liked doing it solo. So whether it was a piano recital or a monologue that I had to do for, some theater thing or whatever it was, or sometimes even when I've played in church and I've been playing the keyboards underneath the pastor coming up and doing a prayer, something about me being solo and not being able to hide in anything, for whatever reason, it always gets into my head. And that translates into being in front of the camera now, because, and I think the easiest thing for me is I've turned the monitor off. So now when I'm looking at the camera, I'm literally looking in the lens. I'm not looking off the screen and seeing, okay, it's not framed properly, right, or whatever it is. And because I spent so much time being behind the camera and composing the shot and getting the lighting just right and this and that and whatnot. And so it's been a mind fuck. Being in front of the camera. And for whatever reason, live streaming is what got me out of that. Now it's so much easier for me for whatever reason. I don't know why live streaming, because of COVID, I had to do some live streams, back in April. And ever since then, I was like, oh, I need a live stream. Oh, I need a live stream. Yeah. I need a live stream. So I don't know. Go ahead.
I mean, for me personally, being in front of crowds and you have people looking at you definitely broke me out of my shyness. I wouldn't say quick, right, but I know it happened.
Right.
When did it happen? I don't know, but I know it happened. So, and as far as like live streaming versus recorded videos, you've never heard this, but I would actually rather live stream.
Yes.
Just because if it's that in the moment thing, that DJing right now in the moment.
Yes.
Here's the reaction. Let's get it. I'll take that over recording anything any day. So that's why I love doing podcasts and all that kind of stuff. And it's that in the moment thing, that right now.
Yeah. And, I know you and I talked about, I don't know if it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year. I had an idea for a show for you and I to do. And
I'm still waiting.
I know, dude.
I'm ready when you are. I stay ready.
Time, dude. Time. I need more time. Yeah. No. And trust me. I know you have. I know you'll do it. You'll find it.
Yeah. I'll make the time.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. But
all right.
But now I lost my train of thought.
Our show.
No. Well, no, I was going to say, I think, to your point about podcasting and being in the moment, and I think maybe that's what the live streaming did to me is it first of all, it made me realize all I'm doing is having a conversation.
Right.
And so you and I, like even what we're doing here, you and I, it's for whatever reason, I don't stumble over my words as much. I'm more kind of in the moment, as you said.
Yeah.
But like if I have to record, if I had record something on camera before a tutorial and at the end of the tutorial or whatever it was, I am so,
Oh yeah.
So now I actually record my tutorials as if I'm live streaming them. So I'll have the main camera set up and then, kind of a webcam also set up as well too. And then I'll just use OBS and I'll live stream the tutorial. And I find that works so much better. And I feel like I'm less out of my head, so to speak,
right.
And I'm more in the moment. So yeah.
And don't be afraid to use a teleprompter, kids. I find myself using teleprompters now because you're right. You do kind of stumble over. If I don't have notes, I'll definitely stumble over everything.
I've heard a number of YouTubers who actually suggested that, and I don't know.
Can you see it? Can you see my teleprompter in the screen? I don't know if you can.
No, I can't. I can't see it, unfortunately, here. No, I might see it on the footage. On the footage later. Well, okay. I just broke the illusion that this is live. Well, I don't know. I mean, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
If you take away anything from this, is just if you have an idea and it's something you want to do it.
Yep.
Start it, do it.
I like that.
Baby steps, but do it.
Maybe I should put that at the beginning of it. No, I want people to watch now.
Yeah.
But I think
just do it. No matter what it is.
I think you're right. I mean, it's it seems a little, kind of cheesy Nike slogan-ish type of thing, but it's extremely valid, and
I mean, because I'm a testament to that. I mean, whatever it is that you want to do, you can literally do whatever it is you want to do.
Well, and I mean, you're a more kind of direct testament to doing that than somebody like like I mentioned earlier, than Quentin Tarantino, who has no schooling at all and whatnot. But So I think that's it for me. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to talk about.
That's it, man. Just stay tuned to the bemotion YouTube channel.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's the other. Oh gosh, that sends me down a whole nother avenue of conversation that I'm gonna leave for another time. But all
right.
But
in our upcoming show too.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for taking your time out to do this. I know you have a bajillion things to do. And I appreciate it very much. And who knows?
Yeah, man.
You might.
Thank you for having me too, man. I appreciate me being on the show.
Yeah, well, and I still want to do what we talked about. So
yes, sir.
We're going to talk about that more off camera at another time. So,
all right,
man. Thanks again.